Hello, hello, welcome. My name is Kim Addis and I am the president of Frame of Mind Coaching, and today you are joining us for the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast. I have with me a co-host that I'm super excited to introduce to you. She is actually an entrepreneur who owns a therapy clinic, actually a series of therapy clinics, not too far from me. Her name is Sue Cook. She runs a company called Family TLC in Barrie, Ontario. Sue, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. So there are a few topics that I want to share with you or talk to you about. And I think it's really interesting because I come at it from a executive coaching standpoint, and you come at it from a therapeutic standpoint. I think a lot of our ideas converge, but maybe at some point they differ. So I'm really excited to get your input. I'm excited to answer some questions that I have encountered lately from clients and really see what your point of view is. So the first thing I want to talk about is this whole issue of emotional resilience. It's a hot topic for us. It's something that we work diligently at helping our clients build. And we do it in very much a business setting or an executive related setting. How does emotional resilience play a role in your therapeutic services, let's say?
Well, to tell you, when we're talking to clients about emotional resilience, one of the analogies that we use is, if you were building one of those suspension bridges that goes over a canyon and you use the really big, thick rope, and an engineer designs it so that suspension bridge will carry the weight, carry the weather, handle the wind, handle all the stressors that nature and human beings can throw at it, and have a sense of it's going to last for a certain length of time. And we talk to clients about human beings are the same. We're kind of born with this sort of set time frame, perhaps, that we're going to live, and the weather, life, other people, all kinds of other things can happen to us, and it can put wear and tear on us, whether that be stress or whatever ways that comes. And if you think about that suspension bridge, and you think about that suspension bridge being somehow a tree grows and a branch is rubbing up against that suspension bridge. And even though it's designed to last and carry and do all of those things, that tree rubbing up against it starts to cause that thick, strong rope to fray. And I think what people would maybe do using that analogy is find a coating that they put on that rope, because maybe they can't move the tree, or maybe it ends up against a rock or something like that and you can't move it. So you have to put a coating on that rope. Teflon would be really good for that, but people don't tend to use that. So that's what I think resilience is. It's knowing how to put the coating on.
That's very, very interesting. I have never heard it stated that way. So let's get very specific. Let's take a situation, could be an executive or an entrepreneur. Let's make it a woman. She's running a company and she's having a tough year. She's made a few investments in her company, but they haven't created a return on that investment. And while revenues may be fairly healthy, profits are down. Cash flow is super tight. Meantime, she has kids at home going into a difficult age. One of her kids is getting bullied, let's say. Things aren't so harmonious at home with her husband. Things are tense. Intimacy is low. And sort of like you're seeing that build up. How would we apply the concept of the coding in this case, where someone needs kind of, I would call it mental strength? And I'll define, before we go there, let me define emotional resilience a little bit in my terms, and you can tell me if it's aligned. For me, emotional resilience is the concept of everybody experiences blows, right? We have hard times. And a person who has a high degree of emotional resilience has the ability to bounce back from that adversity with a fair deal of speed and agility, and even, if I may say, leverage in some capacity that adversity. In other words, turning it into something good. So when we look at the Teflon concept or the coating concept, how would you help a client? Like I just defined the client. What would you do? How would you help that person? What's the coding?
Self-compassion is a huge part of emotional resilience. Celebration, focusing on what's gone well, what's going well, to build the confidence. Because when you keep getting those blows or those places that you're turning and it feels like everywhere you turn it's a negative, you start to shift into that negative perspective. So if you're going to keep your curiosity up and you're going to keep your confidence up, then self-compassion and gratitude are huge for that, and celebrating the successes, not getting lost in, oh my gosh, intimacy is down, my kid's being bullied, my business isn't going the direction that I needed to go. Those focuses drain your energy, pull you away from where you need to look and focus. And people will say, well, that's easy to say, Sue. It's easy to tell me that I should be self-compassionate. It's easy to tell me to focus on the positive. No, it's not easy. And that's why we have to really think about that coding piece. It's not just putting coding on that rope when things are bad. It's having the habits and strategies that are in place that are always there, that make sure that that coding is strong, so that when you hit an adverse situation, you've got some patterns, you've got some connections. Community. It feels like I'm saying a bunch of C's here. Maybe that's what the result, where the good thing comes. Curiosity, compassion, community, confidence, those pieces are something that we have to keep building day to day. And what ends up happening for the entrepreneur woman who's got a family and a relationship and making business decisions is it erodes away at her focus on the things she needs to do in order to help her to be able to be resilient in that adversity. Emotional resilience doesn't happen right now. It happens over a course of period of time of practicing it, just like exercise.
So it's like a muscle.
Yes.
So I always say it's like, if you want to have great abs, you go to the gym. If you want to have great emotional resilience, it's also a muscle you build, and it requires discipline and practice, just like going to the gym for your abs.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to go back to that skeptical person who says, yeah, it's easier said than done. Or, I can't just turn my focus. I sleep and it's like eating away at me, at my soul, in the back of my brain. So what do you tell those people? How do you help them to focus on what I call good and right, on the things that are good and right, on what's working?
Right. Well, usually in therapy, the first thing we do is we normalize.
What does that mean?
It means that we say, making it short and sweet. I wouldn't say this to a client in this fashion, but I would say that's part of the human experience.
Okay.
That's normal. That we are wired in our brains to go to the negative first. That's just how we're hardwired.
Okay.
It's the amount of time you spend in that negative that's the problem or not.
Right.
So it's normal to have a lot going on and wake up and think about it all. It's getting mad at yourself because you're a human being that's having that struggle that becomes problematic. So, yeah, I got a lot going on. Things aren't looking the greatest right now, and I'm going down below the line into that negative place. I'm judging, I'm criticizing, I'm doing all the things that I know aren't going to work for me.
I'm overeating, I'm over drinking, I'm not sleeping, I'm grumpy, I'm mean to people, not on purpose, it just happens.
Right. And yeah, that's human. Of course you are. Of course, it makes total sense with everything that you're carrying. Is it helpful? Is it really helping you?
It's not helpful, but I can't help myself.
So who's in charge of your brain?
Theoretically me, but I feel out of control.
Right. So what do you do in your exercise and practice of resilience, what are the patterns that you have or the things that you've learned that get your feet on the ground right now in this moment? What gets your feet on the ground?
Right. In other words, what helps you get quickly recalibrate?
Yeah.
Right. So it could be, for me, it's journaling, or it could be going for a walk, or it could be just getting some fresh air, or it could be meditating, breathing, whatever, exercise, right? Could be any of those things.
And for me, it could be, okay, I'm a human being here, and this is tough. Absolutely, this is tough. And what do I need right now in this absolute moment? And the answer exists in the room with me right now.
Mm.
Oh, maybe I need a drink of water. Maybe I need air, because sometimes we complicate it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, going for a walk is a great idea, and that is a really effective strategy. But I don't have time to go for a walk right now, So how do I center? How do I recalibrate in a way that just gets me, I don't know, I always think about feeling my abs, getting to the core.
Mm-hmm.
Or do I do a laser focus where I try and feel the toe beside my baby toe? Like if you try that right now, to feel the toe beside your baby toe, you really have to laser focus. And whatever you were just worried about disappeared for a second.
That's true.
Right?
That's very true.
So a lot of times we make things complicated when simple is much better.
Let me just share with you a story. My father-in-law had a very interesting kind of way of looking at things, looking at everything. But when one of the kids would cough, he'd say, "Look at your pinky." Right? And you think, what does that have to do with anything? But the minute you look at your pinky, your attention is placed somewhere else and you stop coughing.
Exactly. Or if you hiccup and you're hiccuping,
yeah,
you hear somebody hiccuping, you say to them, "Oh, somebody's thinking about you right now. Who is it?"
Right.
So that simple getting into this absolute second.
Interesting.
Interrupts the processing, the pathways that you're going in your brain.
Yeah.
And then allows you a better opportunity to, as you call it, recalibrate.
So that sounds a lot like mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah. I want to pause for a minute. So my instinct, okay, so when I describe this person, right, this business person who's having, let's call it a tough year, who's not in the best place in her relationship, who has a daughter who's struggling, whatever it is, my instinct as a coach would be to say, okay, here's the story, here's the situation, here are the things you're experiencing. Let's look at the beliefs you have around those things. Most interesting to me is, what are the beliefs you have about yourself? What does it mean about you as an entrepreneur? What does it mean about you as a mother? What does it mean about you as a wife? What does it mean? And that meaning that I would extract, that I would try to find, would help me understand where the real suffering is coming from. So this person may or may not say, "You know what, I've been running this business for a while. I shouldn't be here. I should be further ahead. This proves that, I'm not that smart. I'm not that capable. I'm not that successful. I kind of suck." Right? Or my daughter's suffering. I don't know how to help her. I'm a terrible mother. Or I've been in this marriage and I'm frustrated. I don't know how to make this marriage work. I'm not designed for marriage. And so those beliefs are what I would be interested in extracting and really addressing, because from my perspective, those beliefs are what is causing the pain, the frustration, the struggle, and what makes it difficult to focus on the good stuff.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I mean, that particular person that you described believes that she's not designed to be successful, right. And that may be one of the core beliefs that she's struggling with. And so as much as she pushes and pushes to be successful, she's not aligned with her authenticity, because her authentic self is saying, I can't do this.
Right. So whenever you have thoughts, whenever you have beliefs that are negative or cause you to feel bad, that's an indicator that you're turned away from the things that you really want. That's an indicator that you're out of alignment. In other words, that's not who you really are. You're just gone down the wrong road briefly, and hopefully like we can help you turn around quickly.
Yeah, and I think there's with all due respect to yours and my profession, there's a lot of self-help concepts out there. You know, there's a lot of self-help books and all these kinds of things that people can do. And I think part of my passion, and I would suspect yours as well, is coaching and therapy can help people see things that they aren't able to see by themselves.
100%. So like, as I listen to you, I'm like, wow, I should book a session with Sue. I have a question for you though. I have a question. A lot of people ask me this, and I really don't exactly know how to differentiate. What is the difference between therapy and coaching?
Interesting, because we had a coach come in and do a presentation, and we just had this conversation, and her take, she was a coach, and she said coaching is about present and future. Therapy goes to the past. And we said, that's interesting, because we spend a lot of time in the past, present, and future with clients.
So you don't buy that?
No.
Okay.
I think, I honestly don't know the difference between coaching and therapy. And full disclosure, Family TLC stands for Family Therapy and Life Coaching.
There you go. Right.
So we integrate those things together. But I do see, in my experience of using business coaches, there's a goal in mind, and I feel like sometimes coaching has some expertise in that particular goal, but I also don't want to pigeonhole coaching either. I think
maybe I can ask it differently. If let's say a person is struggling, someone who's listening to this podcast right now, and they're going, well, what should I do? Should I go see a coach, or should I talk to a therapist? What would you recommend? Like what problem, what state, what frame of mind should a person be in where they would choose one or the other? Like, I just want to shed some light on that question.
That's a really good question. I guess for me, kind of being authentic here, I don't go to therapists anymore. I go to coaches.
Right.
Because as a therapist of 20 years, I make a lousy client for a therapist.
I so get that. I make a lousy client for a coach.
So there you go.
Oh my God. I totally get that.
So a coach should see a therapist, and a therapist should see a coach. There we
That's
go.
Right. I sit there, I'm like, she's not doing it right. But yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe I'm going to turn it back to you. Like, what do you think? What do you think the difference is between a coach and a therapist?
Again, I feel like I'm afraid to talk a little bit out of turn, but I'll do it anyway. I suspect that when a person needs a therapist, perhaps they have more chronic issues. Perhaps they have issues that have been going on for a very long time, and they're not just situationally based. And they're more deeply seated and require I think a more of a therapeutic approach. Not that coaching isn't therapeutic, because it kind of is, but in coaching, there's a very practical element to it as well. And typically people come because one of two reasons: there's a situation that they find difficult to deal with and they don't know how to deal with it, and or there's a goal they want to reach and they're struggling to reach it on their own. So I don't know if that's a good clarification, but that's, I think, how I see it.
Right. Yeah. I know in my experience of coaching, I've always had a goal that I wanted to achieve, and look for somebody that has a system in place or has done it themselves. I prefer a coach that has a specific system that they're going to take me through. Where therapy, I think a lot of people come to see us a lot about relationships, whether it's the relationship they're having with themselves, with their partner, with their children. It's that sense of, how do I show up in the world with other people in that relationship component of it. And they also have what we call mental health concerns.
Right.
It's depression or anxiety, and they're looking for somebody that's had particular training in how to help with those kinds of things. And we spend a lot of time with all ages, with anxiety, trauma, depression, relationships, that sort of stuff. And we don't do any of the, you know, how do you run your business or roll with your
Yeah.
entrepreneurship kind of
Right.
you
Right.
know. So I
Yeah,
know
that's a very important distinction, I think. Very
yeah,
important.
for
So I
sure.
wanted to ask you another question, because I have found lately that this issue, this, let's call it a problem, keeps coming up around, like within people in my world, whether it's clients, friends, just people that I know. I hear very often the following words: I am very lonely. And it's interesting because, you know, in a way it's a practical problem, but in a way it's really not, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm very curious how you might address that statement, how you might help someone who feels lonely.
I guess there's several routes I would take on that one, but just that statement in itself, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, but not necessarily what I might say to the person,
Okay.
because I think it would be unique to the person themselves. But if you were telling me you were lonely, I would be thinking, how strong is your identity? How strong do you feel about what you love and what you know and what makes you happy and all of that sort of stuff. Because if you're not feeling a strong sense of what brings you joy and your authentic self and your values, then you're going to feel sort of an empty inside.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would be thinking is, how well has this person been able to form attachments in their life? And are they struggling with some attachment difficulties, or do they have a dysfunctional attachment style? So when we're children, young children, when we connect, when our parents are caregivers for us, we know that within the first 5 years, or even younger, a child needs to form a secure attachment with one parent for sure, and ideally with both parents. And if they don't have that secure attachment with a parent, that can cause problems throughout all of their life. So people can be connected with people, be around people, sitting having dinner with family and friends, and there's lots of laughter. But if they don't know how to form a secure attachment, they're going to feel lonely.
So let's say that is the case. Let's say they have had childhood, an upbringing where there wasn't a secure parental attachment. Let's say that is in fact the case. So what do you do? Do you teach them tips and strategies and techniques for forming attachment? Do you look at what they're doing and saying, hey, this isn't leading to attachment, this is leading to detachment? Like, what is the approach?
So again, that's where I think about how therapy goes in the past, the present, and the future, right?
Yeah.
So with some people, we would be dissecting that lack of attachment in childhood and the core beliefs that have come out of that lack of attachment. I'm not worthy of a true relationship or whatever. So we may go in the past and look
Yeah.
at how that's formed their way of looking at life. We would also look at the present and get them to really look at the relationships that they are in, because if you have a disorganized attachment style, you're going to attract people who are disorganized in their attachment style.
What does that mean, disorganized attachment style?
So disorganized attachment style means that sometimes I'm really there for you. Sometimes I'm with you and I'm there because it's just for me. Sometimes I'm unreliable. So I'm never organized in the way that I form relationship with you. And I'm not really good at having a reciprocal relationship that generates a sense of security for both of us.
So in other words, they're not consistent in their approach.
Correct. They're
Okay.
disorganized. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you don't know, it's a moving target for you.
Okay.
And you tend to attract people that are the same. So your two moving targets, you're going to feel pretty lonely in that relationship. So we're going to look at the existing relationships and get an understanding of what's not working for this person in the way they think, in their emotions, in their behaviors. And then that helps frame what do they need to learn moving forward, and what kind of shifts will they have to make with who they hang out with or who they engage with or how they engage in a relationship.
Okay, so let me throw one more thing at you because I'm really interested in this subject. It's a hot topic lately. Online dating. So,
Right?
you have, I don't know, for some reason, there seem to be a lot more single women there than there are men. I don't know why that is. Maybe my database is skewed. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I see that. And they are attempting online dating. And it's like a terrible, horrible, awful disaster. So
Yeah.
like, what do you think? Is that a good thing to do? Is that a bad thing to do? Is there a specific approach they need? Do they need to clean up their disorganization first? Like, what's required here?
Yeah. Have you closed your past relationship before you even start getting into a new one?
Yeah,
Have you taken the adversity of the past relationship and learned and made some changes and adjustments for yourself so that you are, whatever you want to call it, at a better attachment level? Have you profiled what an ideal relationship would look like? Have you profiled how you would show up in an ideal relationship and how you would feel in an ideal relationship? Many people go on there and they put a profile on about who they think they are, and they're looking at profiles for other people, but they don't think about the relationship, and they don't think about how I know I'm in something good.
right. Yes.
And then you can start to look at, talking to people, and what are the warning signs that this is not a good fit for me, and let's spend less time criticizing those horrible fish out there and more time talking about, I'm looking for the compatibility and how do I find the compatibility. And it's
Right.
not about me being a bad fish or them being a rotten fish. It's about getting clear that I'm good at forming a secure attachment, and I know what that feels like and how I show up for that. And then I can invite my optimal self to the table, and I can invite their optimal self to the table.
So one of the things that I often do is, like, we talk about this whole idea of, I call it shopping and sorting. So you go on a date and maybe it's not, your soulmate. It's not the person you're going to live with forever. But you go on this date and you think, okay, there are some characteristics about this person, call it a guy, this guy that I really, really like. There are lots of things I don't like, but there are some things I really like. And I say, great, put those characteristics in your basket. Like you're going through a grocery store, right? And you don't put everything in your basket. You just take the things you want, right? And you put them in your basket. And soon enough, you have a basket where your word for it is profile, where you have a profile of what it is that you're looking for. So I love that idea. So, this whole idea of keep looking for characteristics, traits, personality traits that you really like, that you say, these are important to me. These are the things that I want in my basket. So here's another question. How do you help someone recover, bounce back from, we're talking about emotional resilience again, rejection? So a person goes on a date, 2 dates, they think something's going on, they think something's good, and then they get ghosted.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
how do you help someone make sense of that?
well, sometimes you can't, which is really frustrating, right? Sometimes you have no idea why you've just been ghosted, right? And it's easy to tell somebody, don't, forgive me for putting it this way, but don't be so arrogant to think that it's all about you, because it's not. And so building that resilience in not taking the things personally, again, is easier said than done.
Right.
I think probably I would go back to, I love your idea of taking the things and putting it in a shopping basket, but I think I'd like to add to that. I was thinking about what about my shopping basket, about who I am and how I show up. And then I started thinking, well, what about the clothing that I want to wear, sort of thing. And, as I stepped forward into those 2 dates with that person, was I showing up the way I want to show up? Was I being where my true characteristics or authenticity or whatever is important to me? Did I bring that to that date? thank goodness if I brought that to that date and that person ghosted me after 2, because they can't handle, or they're not a good fit for me, right?
Right,
It's
right,
more about asking, how did I present? How did I like what I did? Did I start to change who I was for this
right,
person, and I
right.
wasn't authentic?
Did I feel good in my skin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shifting the focus to about me. And it's interesting because when we're doing counseling with people, if we're working with one person, we hear lots about other people that are not in the room. And one of the things, and I imagine you do the same thing, you're constantly focusing the person back to themselves.
Yeah.
Because we can speculate and assume and do all kinds of things about the other person, but we don't know really what's going on with that, right? So staying true to yourself and stop trying to figure out the other person.
Yeah. But, I will say that sometimes, and it happens, while as a coach, by and large, I try to keep my opinion kind of out of the story. There are some times when someone will share with me the actions of the other person, and I say, that guy's an idiot. You're better off without him, right? And
Yeah.
I'm okay to do that. I don't know if therapists do that, but I do that sometimes.
Right.
And I say,
Yeah.
you know what? That guy doesn't sound like he was very good for you anyways, good riddance.
Right. Yeah. And therapists might think that, they might explore that and try and get you to say it maybe, but
No,
but sometimes
I'm pretty vocal.
that's okay. That's okay.
That's
It
okay.
works for people.
Anyways, there's so much we could be discussing, and I hope that maybe we'll have another chance to do this another time. But I want to say thank you so much for spending this time with me, for sharing your opinion. I learned, quite a bit here, and I think it would be really cool to keep talking. But again, Sue, how do people find you?
familytlc.ca. So just go to our website. You can connect with us through that. It's the easiest way to get there.
So one of my favorite things about Sue, one of the things that I find most exciting about Sue, is she's an entrepreneur like me who has a team of therapists that work under the TLC brand. And so we're very similar. We have the similar challenges, similar things that we're trying to achieve. And so I love having you spend this time with me and sharing your thoughts with our audience. So thank you, thank you, thank you, until we do it again.